Okay, let's jump right into it. This deep dive is all about peeling back the layers on the final stage of the money laundering cycle, the integration phase. How does dirty money finally get cleaned up and put back into the legitimate economy?
It's the crucial payoff step, really.
Yeah, and we're pulling insights today from a deep look provided by FinCrime Intelligence, which really lays out the mechanics of this step.
It's a great source, very detailed on the how.
So our mission here is pretty simple, but I think vital.
Yeah.
We want to understand exactly what the integration phase is. We want to dig into the actual techniques criminals use, explore why it's so incredibly difficult for, well, anyone to spot,
Hmm.
learn what warning signs compliance teams can look for, and see what's being done globally to try and shut it down. Okay, let's unpack this.
Sounds good.
You've probably heard us talk about the money laundering journey before placement is getting the cash into the system,
Probably
right?
the initial entry.
Then layering is spinning it around through complex transactions to hide where it came from.
Skewering the origin, yeah.
Yeah. Integration is that point where the money finally seems to pop out, looking innocent and ready to be used freely.
That's exactly it. After all the effort to obscure the origin through layering, the ultimate goal for criminals isn't just to hide the money, but to be able to use it. Integration is the process of making those previously hidden funds appear to come from a completely legitimate source. It's the point where the criminal can finally access and, enjoy their illicit gains without drawing suspicion.
And that's where it gets really interesting looking at how they actually deploy this now supposedly clean money. What does the FinCrime intelligence source tell us about how these funds are used in this final stage?
Well, the source highlights that at this point, the money is used in ways that basically mimic legitimate wealth. Think purchasing high-value assets like real estate, expensive vehicles, or fine art
The big flashy stuff.
sometimes, or might be invested into seemingly legitimate businesses or mainstream financial products. Often it simply fuels the criminal's personal lifestyle,
Hmm.
luxury travel, designer goods, lavish spending. A common, slightly more complex method is using the funds to pay off debts or loans, sometimes ones that were artificially created earlier in the laundering process.
Ah, okay. To provide a false reason for large sums of money moving.
Exactly. And perhaps surprisingly, even making charitable donations or political contributions can serve as an integration technique.
Really? Donations.
Yeah, sometimes used to gain influence or just appear respectable, build a profile.
Wow. That variety is striking. It's not just stashing cash, it's weaving the money into activities that look, well, perfectly normal on the surface. So, stepping back a bit, what are the specific techniques they employ to achieve this integration? What methods does the source point to?
Well, the strategies are quite diverse, and they're, evolving with the financial landscape.
Yeah.
A classic approach detailed is real estate purchases. Buying properties with laundered funds and then later selling them can generate seemingly legitimate profit.
Laundering through property flips.
Got it. Investing in businesses is another key method, injecting illicit funds into companies, especially those they control, to blend the money with actual revenue streams.
Right, like putting millions into I don't know, a small restaurant that suddenly has incredible turnover.
Precisely that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Loan repayments are also a technique. Creating false loan agreements and then repaying them with the laundered money creates a fake paper trail, justifying the movement of funds.
Clever.
Deceptive.
Acquiring luxury assets like yachts, high-end jewelry, or supercars is a direct way to turn liquid cash into tangible, usable wealth. And in the modern context, the source points to securities trading through brokerage accounts as a way to move money within the financial system,
Uh-huh.
and increasingly, cryptocurrency off-ramping.
Oh, crypto. Knew that would come up.
Yeah, that's converting digital assets back into traditional fiat currency via exchanges or over-the-counter desks, which presents, new challenges. Wow, that covers everything from physical property to digital transactions. It really drives home just how many avenues exist. This money has potentially been through placement and layers of complexity. By the time it gets to this stage, why is it so incredibly difficult for banks and compliance teams to actually detect it?
What's fascinating here is that because the funds have already been through previous steps, they often arrive at the integration stage, having passed through multiple jurisdictions, various types of financial institutions, and different asset classes. That complexity alone is a huge barrier.
Just the sheer volume and movement.
Exactly. Added to that, ownership at this stage is frequently disguised using sophisticated structures like trusts, layered shell companies, or third-party nominees. Identifying the true beneficial owner behind an asset or transaction becomes Incredibly challenging.
So you might be looking at a transaction but have like no idea who is actually pulling the strings.
Exactly. Furthermore, when integrated funds flow through legitimate front businesses, the illicit income looks just like standard operating revenue. There's nothing inherently suspicious about a business receiving income on the face of it.
Sure.
And crucially, after integration, the transactions often look deceptively normal. They might be appropriately sized for the asset being purchased, occur at a seemingly regular frequency, and the apparent source.
Like a business investment or a loan repayment?
What's legitimate, yes.
The trail is cold, and the activity has a veneer of normalcy. It sounds almost impossible to catch.
It's very difficult. And those jurisdictional gaps we mentioned play a major role too. If the initial placement or layering happened in countries with weak regulatory oversight, well, trying to trace the money back through cross-border investigations becomes incredibly difficult, sometimes impossible. Distinguishing genuinely acquired assets from laundered funds requires really sophisticated, enhanced due diligence and cutting-edge data analysis tools.
It's like finding a specific drop of ink in a swimming pool after it's been churned around.
That's a good analogy, yeah.
So, given that immense difficulty, there must still be something that compliance teams and investigators can look for. What are the red flags, the warning signs that the FinCrime intelligence source highlights, despite the sophisticated camouflage?
Yeah, even though it's tough, certain behaviors or patterns do stand out and should trigger deeper review. One key indicator is unexplained wealth accumulation, individuals or entities suddenly acquiring significant assets that just don't align with their declared income or known business activities.
So, where did that mansion come from?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Purchases of high-value goods like luxury vehicles or art without a corresponding credit history or any obvious legitimate source of funds to support such spending are also suspicious. A major red flag is the use of multiple intermediaries or complex, seemingly unnecessary ownership structures, specifically for asset purchases.
That feels like someone is deliberately trying to make it hard to see who's buying what.
Obfuscation, right? Absolutely. Intentional obfuscation.
Huh.
Investments in low transparency jurisdictions or illiquid assets that are difficult to value or trace can also be warning signs.
Okay.
Businesses showing unusually high cash flow or profitability that seems inconsistent with the economic norms of their sector should definitely raise questions.
Right. The restaurant example again.
Exactly. And loan repayments made with no clear, logical source of funds, or even worse, made by unrelated third parties, are classic integration indicators that warrant intense scrutiny. These types of indicators should trigger things like beneficial ownership verification and detailed source of wealth checks.
These are things to keep an eye out for, whether you're working in finance or just, a curious observer trying to understand how this works.
That's right.
It's clear financial institutions have to build robust defenses against this. What are some of the most effective strategies mentioned in the source for detecting these integration activities?
Institutions employ several strategies, particularly targeting vulnerable sectors. Enhanced due diligence, or EDD, is critical. Enhanced due diligence. It's crucial for high-risk customers, like high-net-worth individuals, politically exposed persons, PEPs, or those in high-risk industries. Basically digging deeper.
Knowing your customer, but on steroids.
Kinda, yeah. They need to know who they're really dealing with. Beneficial ownership transparency is paramount. Regulations increasingly require knowing the ultimate natural person behind legal entities and complex trust structures.
Getting past the shell companies we talked about.
Exactly. To see through those layers, ongoing transaction monitoring is vital, but it needs to go beyond simple rule-based alerts. Incorporating behavioral and relationship analytics can help spot patterns that look like integration, even if individual transactions don't immediately break rules.
So looking at the bigger picture of their activity.
Right. Analyzing cross-border activity, sometimes leveraging geolocation data or trade finance intelligence, is also key because laundering is inherently global. Specific screening of real estate and luxury asset sectors is crucial, especially in markets known for opaque transactions.
Makes sense. Target the known weak spots.
And finally, effective collaboration with law enforcement and regulators sharing information, typologies, suspicious activity trends is absolutely essential because criminals operate across institutions and jurisdictions. The source also stresses the importance of conducting periodic reviews of high-risk customers, not just at onboarding, because behaviors and risk profiles can change over time.
You can't just check once and forget about it.
No, it has to be ongoing vigilance.
It sounds like a massive, coordinated effort is needed. Stepping back even further, How does the focus on detecting integration fit into the broader global fight against money laundering, involving bodies like, say, the Financial Action Task Force, FATF, and national regulators?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, bodies like the FATF emphasize monitoring all stages, but integration holds a special significance. So
Mm.
where the illicit wealth truly re-enters the legitimate ecosystem. This isn't just a technical compliance issue. It poses direct risks to the integrity of financial markets, undermines economic fairness by distorting asset prices, and erodes public trust in institutions. It's where the dirty money starts directly impacting the clean world.
It's the point where the crime truly pays off and impacts legitimate markets. That's a powerful way to put it.
Precisely. The source points out areas where jurisdictions are really ramping up their focus, driven by this understanding. Real estate transparency is a major push globally, including beneficial ownership registries for property to prevent anonymous purchases.
Trying to lift the veil on who owns what.
Yes. Oversight of crypto asset off-ramps is increasing through exchange licensing requirements and rules like the travel rule.
The travel rule.
Yeah, which requires virtual asset service providers to collect and share information about the sender and receiver of transactions above a certain threshold. Trying to bring some transparency there too. Cross-sector collaboration is seen as vital, moving beyond just banks to involve realtors, lawyers, accountants, and asset managers because integration happens across all these different industries.
Everyone needs to be talking to each other.
Ideally, yes. And public-private partnerships where institutions and authorities share insights on emerging typologies, the common methods criminals are using are becoming more common. Detecting integration at this stage is critical because it's often the best point for asset recovery, securing criminal convictions, and truly disrupting long-term financial crime networks by cutting off their access to wealth.
So catching it here really hits them where it hurts their wallet.
That's the goal.
This deep dive really highlights the complexity of this final stage. Integration is the point where the money is most disguised, using everyday activities and assets as camouflage,
Hmm.
making it incredibly hard to spot even as it re-enters the legitimate world.
It demands constant vigilance, sophisticated tools that can see through complex structures, and real global cooperation to have any chance of detecting it amidst the vast volume of legitimate transactions happening every day.
So, what does this all mean for you listening in? Understanding the integration phase helps clarify why combating financial crime is such a relentless battle. It explains why regulations in areas like real estate and crypto are evolving, and how high-profile cases often involve these convoluted networks of businesses and luxury assets.
Yeah, it shows that the fight isn't just about catching the initial crime or the messy middle steps, the layering,
Hmm.
but crucially about preventing criminals from enjoying the fruits of their labor and thereby breaking the cycle.
Right. And given the myriad ways funds can be integrated, buying assets, funding businesses, fueling lifestyles, and how deeply this money can be camouflaged, it raises an important question for you to ponder. How does this inherent difficulty in identifying the true source of wealth impact our fundamental trust in the transparency and integrity of global markets and asset ownership?
That's a really key question. What does it mean when we can't be sure where the money behind major assets or investments actually comes from?
Something to think about. We hope this deep dive into the integration phase has given you some valuable insights into this absolutely critical part of the money laundering cycle.
Hope it was useful.
Keep exploring.